Hello, everybody, and welcome to World Talks. We're here at the Black Sea Security Forum in Odesa, Ukraine, of course, and I'm joined now by Stephen Moore, our good friend of TVP World from the Ukrainian Freedom Project. Stephen, great to see you in the flesh.
Hey, listen, great to be with you. And, usually we're online. Usually I'm in Poland. This is the first time we met together in Ukraine.
Yep, exactly, and very fitting. Very, very, very fitting. Let's go ahead and discuss, first of all, you did a panel here at the forum today, and it's a very important issue that is not very much reported on, and it's also been taken out of context by various forces in the United States. And therefore, I'd like...
Are you a newscaster or a diplomat? Because that was really good.
Okay. And that is the war on religion.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many churches I've seen destroyed in this country. I've been here for the first year and a half of the war on a constant basis, and saw the whole conflict between, the Russian Orthodox Church and now the Ukrainian Orthodox Church emerging. So tell us a bit about what you guys discussed in this panel.
Yeah, well, we showed a film called No Priest Left, and I'm an executive producer on the film. And it tells the story of Catholic priests who were chased out of occupied Ukraine, not in a friendly manner. They endured horrible hardships at the hands of the Russians. There's now no priests left in occupied Ukraine, thus the name of our piece. We showed that. It's about a 17-minute piece. Your viewers can find it at faithundersiege.com. And we discussed that. And we had Rabbi Osman, who's the chief rabbi of Ukraine. We had a senior member of the Orthodox Church, a senior member of the Baptist Church, and Pastor Mark Burns, who is Trump's spiritual advisor. And he came and talked about it as well. So this is a really important cross-faith dialogue that gets that message out that that Russia is oppressing religion in Ukraine. And why is that important? Because in America in particular, the Russians, who spend $2 billion annually on propaganda, have been pounding American Christians with the notion that Zelensky is persecuting Christians. That drives American Christians, who are primarily Republican, away from Ukraine. So it's important to push back on that. It's important to get the truth out. And that's what we're doing.
It is very important to get that out, and I have to check out your film. I can't wait to see that. Another thing here in Ukraine that we see, I think this year, we're starting to see that Ukraine is turning the corner. At least this is my observation in terms of the domestic technology that they've produced, the way that they're utilizing drones, the fact that most Russians are being killed by these drones on the front lines. And then we see deep strikes into Russia. I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Do you think that Ukraine has turned the corner, and do you think that they are on a new trajectory in this war?
My friend, black billowing smoke over the Moscow skyline is just a beautiful sight. And we've seen it a lot. Just in May, Moscow has been attacked 4 times by the Ukrainians, and with more than 300 drones. And there's been more than 50 cities and towns, military sites that have been attacked by the Ukrainians inside Russia. Right now, 70% of the Russian population is within range of Ukrainian drones and missiles. And so, yes, the Ukrainians are taking the war to Putin, to the Russians. And you notice that Putin had to call President Trump and say, hey, I want to have this military parade on May 9th, but I'm really worried that that Zelensky's going to bomb it. Can you ask him not to? That is not a power move. But what has happening is media coverage is not catching up with the reality, because I had like 20 friends call me with this most recent strike in Kyiv, which is pretty brutal. Are you okay? Are you okay? And I said, yeah, I'm great. Did you see the 4 attacks this month on Moscow? And they're like, what? Really? Ukraine's attacking Moscow? So, it apparently gets more clicks for everyone but TVP World to cover Ukrainian suffering rather than Ukrainian victories inside Russia.
Well, I think that's it's definitely important to show the rest of the world. But do you think the Ukrainians want to show that to the rest of the world, or would they rather show the pain and suffering that they're enduring?
Well, listen, I'm not Ukrainian. I can't tell you, but I will tell you that this, I run campaigns. I change public opinion. I've been doing it for much of my life. And the polling shows, the data shows that talking about Ukrainian suffering is not persuasive to American audiences. They feel bad about it, they feel terrible about it, but oh yeah, this is a terrible thing that's happening. I don't know why I want to spend my tax money on someone who can't win. Now, when it shows that Ukraine is winning, that Ukraine is a winner, Zelensky's a winner, the Ukrainians are fighting, they're standing up to the Russians, they're taking the war back to Moscow. That is a winning message. That is something that American audiences respond to, and it's going to build more support for sending American weapons to Ukraine.
Well, look at the recent kerfuffle with the interceptor drones and the experts that were sent to the Middle East. I mean, I was, in complete disbelief that we would just completely reject the notion that the most battle-tested army in the world right now, in modern warfare, is being looked at like they have nothing to offer us. But I also know that the Pentagon does not believe that. We might hear that from the talking heads in Washington, but we're not necessarily hearing that from the people in the Pentagon or...
And the truth is, the Ukrainians are on the ground in the Middle East, and it's unclear whether the U.S. military is using their anti-drone weapons, but the Gulf states are, and it is frustrating to see this. And I got to tell you, to your point about the Pentagon being aware, the 82nd Airborne has not gone into Iran yet. They're poised, they're ready, but we don't have boots on the ground. Some of the folks here, American military operators, former American military operators, who are now fighting in Ukraine, their opinion is it's because the Pentagon knows that if the 82nd Airborne goes in, they're going to get hit in the face with 1,000 FPV drones. They have no defenses, no tactics, and there's going to be a lot of people die. So that is the state of play, and America, as you point out, needs to catch up.
It does. It does need to catch up. Now, changing subject somewhat, we're also seeing the peace process with the United States kind of flounder. I mean, it's floundered the whole time, but really it's dying.
It's officially declared floundering.
Okay, that's a great way to put it. The next step, Europe. They've been talking about appointing an envoy, potentially. Some of the names not so great. Can Europe, in the form that it is, the European Union, a confederation of independent states that have their own national interests, can the Europeans get an envoy to engage with Vladimir Putin to try and bring this war to a conclusion?
I am one of the most pro-Ukraine, anti-Russian Americans out there, right? And listen, I think that President Trump's policy towards Ukraine needs a lot of work, but it's difficult for me to disagree with President Trump when he talks about NATO. And a lot of people saying, is Trump killing NATO? I think he's just kicking the dead corpse. I mean, if you look at it, just this year, just in 2026, European NATO countries have sent about $17 billion to Russia to pay for cheap fossil fuels. And that's a number that's actually going up. And in the meantime, they've sent about $3 billion to Ukraine for its defense. So it is difficult to take seriously, quote unquote, allies who are funding the opposition, who are funding the enemy more than they're funding the good guys. So until that changes, until that ratio changes, and even with this loan, it's about $3 billion a month. And if you look at current spending on Russian fossil fuels by European NATO nations, it's about $4 billion a month. So even when this loan comes through, they're going to be underwater about $1 billion, funding Russia $1 billion more every month than Ukraine.
How does Europe wake up to this reality? What do you think is needed to change those dynamics?
Stronger Polish leadership. And they're leading really strong, but but listen, Poland gets it. The Baltic states gets it. I was just talking to a woman from Sweden, and they're sending these Gripen jets, which are going to make a real difference here in Ukraine. And so there's 9 European countries more or less that understand the Russian threat and that are willing to put their money on the line, and in some cases lives on the line, to push back on the Russian threat. And then you've got France, Macron, who talks tough sometimes, and you know, I mean, but, you know, and you look at the latest rhetoric by Putin. He's talking about nukes, and a lot of that rhetoric is directed towards Europe. And again, Europe is paying for Putin's war. You know, it cost about somewhere between $30 and $100 million for an Oreshnik. That's a day's spending for European countries on Russian petroleum. So what needs to happen is that someone in France and Belgium and Spain and all the rest needs to wake up. And it's maybe going to take something terrible happen at the hands of the Russians, you know? So difficult for me to say.
Well, we're, you know, into our 5th year here of the full-scale invasion, and well, we're still learning lessons in various capitals. Stephen Moore, thank you so much for joining us. Enjoy the forum, and thanks for joining us.
Great to be with you, always.
Thank you. And that concludes this discussion here from the Black Sea Security Forum. Thank you for joining us, and see you next time. Goodbye.